Hello again and welcome to Ringside. More World Championship boxing on the menu tonight, and we're off to St. Vincent. That, in case you're wondering, is in northern Italy. Some breathtaking scenery from there. Gorgeous, isn't it? Plenty of fresh mountain air for the boxers as they prepare for World Championship action. Well, tonight the IBF light middleweight title is on the line as the Italian champion Gianfranco Rossi defends his crown against the slick American Ron Amundsen. And I'm delighted to say that Gary Mason is with us once again. Quite a bill to look forward to, Gary.
Yes, you've got some good fights there, a good heavyweight fight which will be interesting, and Franco Rossi, he should be familiar to a lot of British fans because he's fought quite a few British fighters before.
Yeah, one or two that you can list for us being?
Yes, Lloyd Hannigan.
Who he lost to, didn't he?
Yes, and he beat Chris Pyatt for the European title, all in good fights.
What about these two heavyweights, Plooy of South Africa and Phil Brown of the United States?
Well, Phil Brown we've seen here before. He went 10 rounds with Frank Bruno. And Plooy, he was recently beaten by Francesco Damiani for the European title and the WBO title, rather. So they're very fairly well-known heavyweights.
Well, as we said, plenty to look forward to. Here's what we have in store for you tonight. Gianfranco Rossi, the 33-year-old champion. This is his 9th light middleweight title fight. Only 3 defeats in 11 years and 53 contests. His opponent, Ron Amundsen, is a 29-year-old from Chicago. He's the USBA champion, and he too has lost only 3 of 24 fights. It should be a terrific contest. We've also got heavyweight action, as we said. Johnny Deploy, another hard-hitting South African. He's up against the American veteran, 36-year-old Phil Brown. Brown's from Louisiana, a tough campaigner, and he's out to upset Deploy's plans. Well, as we said, Gary, we've had 1 or 2 thoughts from. Our man in Italy is Ian Dark, and he's there to set the scene for us now. Ian, good evening to you.
Good evening, and welcome to the Palazzetto dello Sport here in St. Vincent. We've had a great day today up in the mountains. Fantastic scenery, as you say, outside in Italy. Inside, we're hoping for a really good world title fight tonight. Italy's hero, Gianfranco Rossi, who's 33 now, defending his title for the 5th time against Ron Amundsen. Now, Amundsen comes from Chicago. He's an American, and interestingly, he calls himself the Stormin' Mormon. He's a guy who's been around, he's been to Korea, and he's promising a big shock tonight. So that's Ron Amundsen against Gianfranco Rossi, and a big heavyweight title fight as well. Well, it's not for a title, actually, but Johnny Deploy, the South African, who's looking to get back into the title picture, he's up against Phil Brown, a very durable American. Should be a good fight. Do join us in a moment or two.
Looking forward to it, Ian. You may also have caught a glimpse of Glenn McCrory there, who's ringside tonight. Gary, what about these Italians? They often fight to some strange rules, don't they?
Well, it's been said that in Italy, even if you win it soundly on point, you still don't get it. If you knock them out, you're not guaranteed a win. There still might be a dispute. So, but Rossi, he'll have the crowd. He's a very, very awkward fighter. He's a very hard person to beat anywhere in the world, let alone at home.
Dirty fighter, some have said.
Well, it's debatable. You do whatever's necessary, and he does most of what's necessary.
Okay, Gary. We'll talk more in a moment or so. We'll take a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back to Ringside. Live boxing action coming up in a moment. That heavyweight contest between South Africa's Johnny Deploy and Phil Brown of the United States. Our guest in the studios this evening, Gary Mason, who we'll hear more from in a moment or so. But Johnny Deploy, who's had a very mixed career and many doubters. Some say he lacks heart and that he's been ruthlessly exposed. But through all the criticism, he firmly believes that he's got what it takes to become a champion.
Not boxing, Johnny Deploy likes to race motorbikes. He's lost 4 in 29 contests and is managed by his father, Duke.
If Johnny's mind is right, he can become a world champion. He's a fast boxer. He's clever. You don't hit him quickly. And we would like him to become a world champion.
One of Deploy's defeats came against fellow countryman Pierre Kutzer. in the biggest heavyweight title fight in South Africa in years.
Oh, and the right hand from Plooy drops Kutcher. Kutcher gets up straight away.
I've been knocked out once. It's not a nice feeling, but it happens to anybody. It happened to Mike Tyson, to the best in the country.
Here, Kutcher's got to work his way into the fight. Oh, Johnny Plooy's down. Tremendous effort there, and he's down. He seems to be writhing in pain there. It's almost over. Almost over. The Stank Dulu's on the count of 6. And he's just made a count.
He's wobbling. And referee Christopher Dulu's let it go on. That was a tremendous attack. And down it goes to Plooy.
I want to become a world title holder. I want to fight against the best, like Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield. I want to fight against those guys.
Well, he might want to fight against them, but Gary, is he good enough to compete at that level?
That's really debatable. It depends on how much his heart's in it. I've actually sparred with him recently, before he fought Francesco Damiani for the European title. And he has very quick hands and a fairly good puncher, but his size for a heavyweight nowadays is a real disadvantage to him because he's very small for a heavyweight.
Mind you, Evander Holyfield is very small for a heavyweight, and he rules the world at the moment.
Yes, but that is quite true. But I think Plooy hasn't got maybe as much skill as Evander Holyfield, and I don't think he definitely hasn't the experience. So it is quite a disadvantage. But when they say about his heart, that is to be questioned as well.
Okay. Well, what about Phil Brown? 10 years older than Plooy. He's been around the scene for many years. His main claim to fame, he beat Jimmy Young, the man who gave Muhammad Ali hell in a world title fight in 1976. So Plooy would be best advised not to underestimate the veteran.
From Lake Charles, Louisiana, Phil Brown's one of boxing's great survivors. He's been a pro for 11 years, and he says the best is still to come.
I haven't reached the pinnacle that I think I should have. Like all other guys that came up with me, Greg Page, Dokes, all these guys, they've already had their chance. I haven't had mine yet. It's about my time now.
One of those have-gloves will travel boxers, Brown's trade's taken him just about everywhere, including to London, where he met a rising star called Frank Bruno, who even in those days was practicing his pantomime routine. Both Plooy and Brown have fought Pierre Kurtzer, Brown surviving 9 rounds.
A man of 35, and he's in good physical condition, I'll say that much for him, and he's been able to absorb everything thrown at him.
But
throwing punches.
Unfortunately, that's the problem for him, though. Lenny's absorbing punches like a sponge, and it's not good for him.
And the referee's
jumped in and stopped the fight.
The referee stopped it, and very wise.
Johnny's a clever boxer, you know. He's a good boxer, decent hitter. It's going to be, my total concentration is going to have to be on him. I won't be able to wander off for a second in the fight because he's a clever guy and he's got some small people in his corner. So it's going to be test of wills, I think.
Quick word on Brown then, Gary. Looks as though he can take a shot and he's a stayer.
Yes, he's a very awkward opponent. It'll be very hard to beat if he doesn't want to get beat. And obviously with his size and all the physical advantages he's got, he's going to make it very hard work for Plooy.
Okay, well, let's go ringside. Our commentators, Glenn McCrory, the former world cruiserweight champion, and Ian Dark. For our German viewers, Jean-Marcel Nats, and for our viewers in Holland, Rins van der Meer.
Thank you, Richard and Gary. There's Phil Brown, 36 years of age, from New Haven, Connecticut. He's really been around, a durable veteran and quite a survivor. And up against Johnny Plooy, the big punching South African. Phil Brown weighing in at 16 stone 6 pounds, which, well, he looks to be carrying just a bit of excess baggage to me there. And Plooy, 24 wins, 20 of them by knockout. But he's lost the really big, important fights of his career. And Plooy looking here to blast his way back into some sort of contention with an impressive performance over a man who knows his way around this heavyweight division. Plooy in the blue trunks, Phil Brown from the United States in the red. Plooy, Glenn McCrory has things to prove here.
He certainly has. He's coming back after a loss, and a loss to a South African, and also Damiani. So he needs to show himself here. But Plooy's a puncher, and he's always got that punch. And he's up against a good boxer, so it could be a very interesting fight to see whether he can get Brown out the way with a big right hand, or whether he's going to struggle. Brown's certainly capable of giving him a bit of a good fight.
Just how durable Brown is can be gauged by the fact that when Frank Bruno was knocking everybody over in the early stages of his career, Brown came to London in 1984 and lasted the full distance with Frank. Quite easily as well. He's been sparring with Larry Holmes, who rather disturbingly is planning a comeback at the age of 41. That's due next month. And Brown's come in from Florida from that work to take this fight with Plooy, who lands with a good right there. Plooy has got a big punch, but some people have questioned his heart, dedication, how game he is if he's in a really tough fight.
That's true. When he's doing well and he's dishing it out, he's very good at it. But when somebody hits him back on the chin, that's when the question marks have been raised about Plooy. It's whether he can take it.
Landed with another good right there, made Brown blink a bit. But this American really is Mr. Durability. He's only been stopped twice in 12 years as Phil Brown. Plooy, who was beaten in 2 rounds by his South African compatriot Pierre Kurtzer. That was a big defeat for him. That was a big money fight in South Africa. He'd won that one. He really could have got into the big money perhaps at world level.
It's a pretty quiet opening. Plooy's doing all the forcing in a minute, and Brown's just having a nip round the ring and having a eyeing up his man, see what he's got.
Plooy, managed and trained by his father, Dupe Plooy. Well, Brown there just starting to get a bit ambitious himself there, throwing out his jab a couple of times, looking for a big right. Well, good spirit between them. They touched gloves. Maybe it was all a bit too friendly, that opening round, Glenn.
It was quite a quiet round. Brown's been around, he's 36-year-old, he's been around a long time, so he doesn't really have anything to prove. Plooy, he came forward, threw his shots, didn't really land anything. But it was quite a quiet opening.
There's Johnny Plooy's record. 4 defeats, and the defeats have been in important fights in his career. Ronaldo Snipes beat him, Francesco Damiani, and Pierre Kurtzer. I'm getting myself back in my cans again.
Plooy's only 26 years of age as well, which is he's still quite young, and he can still do something on the heavyweight scene if he can, get a few wins.
40 seconds.
Well, Johnny Plooy, his camp was saying they never know which Johnny Plooy is going to turn up from one fight to another until he gets in the ring, whether he's really fired up and looks for something explosive, or whether he's in one of his quiet moods. And round 1 would tend to suggest the latter, but maybe they've said something in the corner and we can expect more fireworks in round 2. Plooy in the blue trunks here.
I thought Plooy would have started a little bit faster, being that the fight's only an 8-round fight. I thought he'd get straight in and really get to work when he's big punches. But he seems to be giving Phil Brown quite a bit of respect.
Don't think Plooy looks in the greatest condition either. He's weighing in here above his best weight. His best weight's about 15 stone 1, and he's up at 15 stone 7.5, or 98.5 kilos for our European viewers.
I think that's maybe because Brown isn't an exciting fighter, and he isn't a big puncher, and he's took this fight a little bit lightly.
Well, he can't afford to, Plooy. If he wants to resurrect his career, he's got to come up with some headline-grabbing performances, because there are a lot of doubts about him, quite frankly, at the moment.
Brown's quite content just to just to walk around the ring and try and pick up the odd jab. He hasn't done anything really of his own as far as forcing it goes.
Well, it's a very cautious Johnny Duploy at the moment. As I say that, he does let go with the right, and Brown, as he often is clever enough to sway out of the way and avoid the worst of the artillery.
He hasn't looked very sharp at all in the first 2 rounds, Duploy. He's trying to, he looks as if he's trying to he's thinking about the shots too much, and he's not getting them off, looking for the big shot all the time. Where I think if he got his jab going, did a bit more work, he'll have a bit more success with the big punches. It is a very cagey opponent that he's up against. Phil Brown's been around for such a long time, in good class, and as you said earlier, only the very, very good men have managed to stop him.
Having said that, he hasn't won for 2.5 years. He's on a losing streak. He tends to last the distance, but he loses, basically, and I think if you're going to make an impact, you've got to be knocking fellas like this out of the way in impressive fashion.
Phil Brown's never going to be a headline maker. He's going to be there and he's going to give somebody a good test, and if a guy's not going to make the grade, he'll get beat off Phil Brown. But if he's going to, you know, excite people and do something, he can beat him. And at the minute, Duploy's not impressing anybody.
So coming up to the end of the second round, not a very impressive Johnny Duploy so far. Will it improve? Join us after the break.
With Silent Night, you get a revolutionary spring system, not just in the mattress, but also in the base. So no matter how heavy your partner, there's no roll together. The result, a perfect...
Welcome back to St. Vincent in northern Italy. We're about an hour from Turin. This is Phil Brown, who's survived very easily indeed so far against a rather disappointing Johnny Duploy. They put the gum shield in the wrong way around there for the moment, almost on poor old Phil Brown. But they've got that right happily. Round 3 then. Brown, just to remind you, in the red trunks. And just to ease identification for everybody at home, I noticed they the waistband as well, in case you're in any doubt. Duploy has had some good wins in his time. He stopped the former world title contender David Bay in 9 rounds in 1987. He also forced a stoppage against that knowing veteran James Quick Tillis. Beat the former world cruiserweight champion Ricky Parkey as well. James Broad and Mike Weaver are also Duploy victims, although Weaver in another match did knock Duploy out. So he's been in with some good men, Johnny Duploy, but he's at a very telling time in his career. Still only 26. There is time for him possibly to rebuild if he can answer all the questions against him in some sort of positive manner. Frankly, tonight, he's not doing that so far.
It doesn't look like he's got his mind together yet in this fight. He seems to be, you know, very casual, looking all the time for a big right hand to the body or to the head, and nothing's quite coming yet.
Having said all of that, Brown doesn't exactly look too ambitious himself at the moment, does he?
Well, Brown's one of the sort of fighters which is always going to be hard to be in against. A guy who's never going to do too much, never going to force a fight, but who is cagey and who can hit you with some good counters and is always looking for you to make a mistake to pick you off. And they're awful type of guys to fight.
Still Duploy really looking to get into gear and to find some combinations. He's tending to punch at one punch at a time like that, not really following through when he does make any impact. Brown, of course, just outreaching him a bit as well and poking out the jab from time to time, and clever in the way that he can slip the punches. And so far, he's making Johnny Duploy look exceptionally ordinary.
He is. At this minute, he doesn't look like a world-class fighter, but he does have a punch. He's shown that before. But I think he just has to step the action up a bit. He's given Brown too much room to move, too much time to think about it. He's got to put the pressure on and get to him, keep close and a bit more work. Whether in his own mind he hasn't got the stamina, feels maybe he's took this fight a bit lightly, but he's taking it very easy.
Decent body punch from Plooy there. But, a spasmodic success as Brown goes back to his corner again. Raleigh rather unscathed by it all. Well, he's had a long career as Plooy, and I wonder what Duke Plooy's dad has got to say to him over there in the corner. Some harsh words, I would think. Now Phil Brown, who's lost his last 4 against Marvis Frazier, Anders Eklund, Mike Weaver, who was 37 at the time, that was on points, and a stoppage, a rare stoppage for him against Pierre Kurtzer, of course, who's also beaten Plooy. 12-year career, 31 wins in that career, and the best of them, as Richard Keys was saying earlier, against Jimmy Young, the man who gave Ali such trouble back in 1976. But you have to say Jimmy Young was a rather faded elderly figure at the time. This fellow really is very resilient and cagey, an old craftsman who makes his living as a survivor, and 36, he doesn't look bad for 36, with all the kind of people he's been in with as well. 4th round, Plooy in the blue trunks, the South African from Roodekrans, which is a suburb of Johannesburg.
In the beginning, this fight's it's been too much like a sparring session. Neither man really wanting to push it. Neither man really looks too keen on getting through and having a good finish.
Don't forget the big world title fight still to come. Gianfranco Rossi defending his IBF light middleweight title here against Chicago's Ron Amundsen, who promises a shock. Well, we shall see.
Brown has a nice fast jab. He just doubled it up before and caught Plooy quite well. I think it's a good punch that keeps knocking Plooy's head back an awful lot more.
Well, that's a shame. We do appear to have lost pictures for a moment or so, but I think we've got them back, which is good news. We can go straight back to Italy.
Good jabs there from Brown, using his reach advantage. But really, at the moment, these two look like contenders for the Nobel Peace Prize out there, quite honestly.
I'm surprised at Plooy, who really needs a good win, really needs to set people talking about him. Kutzer's taken all the limelight from him and beat him in South Africa. He needs to do something special, and I think this is the ideal opportunity for him to get a real good win back on his belt, and he's just not taking the opportunity.
Of course, you know the problem, Glenn. I think it's motivation, isn't it? It's hard sometimes for fighters who've been around to get up for the kind of in-between fights, the non-title fights.
It is. I mean, that is a problem, but Plooy is coming back for some losses and has got something to prove, and if he wants to make some big money, to get in with the big guys, he can't fight like this. He needs to pick it up and do a lot more work than this. It's a very lazy performance.
And the crowd just starting to get a little bit restive with it. And frankly, I'm not surprised. 30 seconds to go in this round, the 4th.
Plooy can afford to take a few chances here. He seems very wary of taking a chance, but Brown isn't the greatest of punchers, and I think if Plooy had pushed him from the beginning, Brown would have stamina problems as well. He's 36 years of age. Plooy's only 26.
Brown continuing to mess him about, as they say in the trade. Bell goes to end the round. Can Johnny Plooy find the knockout punch? Join us in a moment. Welcome back to St. Vincent in Italy. Johnny Plooy, the big punching, or so we're led to believe, South African, making very, very hard and heavy weather of the American Phil Brown here as they go into the 5th round. It's due to go 8. which is slightly unusual, I must say. Normally fighters of this experience would be in a 10-rounder, but on the evidence of what we've seen so far, perhaps we should be grateful for small mercies that it's only going to go 8 if it lasts the distance. Big world title fight still to come on ringside tonight, live from St. Vincent on the Sports Channel and Eurosport. Rossi against Amundsen. Plooy working behind his jab. They claim in South Africa that he's much more popular than Pierre Kurtzer, who's the South African who's making more impact at the moment. Decent left there, just catching Brown off balance from Plooy.
That seems to be what Plooy's waiting of. He's waiting for Brown to lead. He just caught him down a good left hook off a lead jab, and I think that's what he wants. I think he wants to try and he wants Brown to take a chance. Well, I think Brown's been around too long to fall into that trap.
He's very, very good at tying him up, blocking the shots, leaning back on the ropes, riding whatever does get through. To be fair to Plooy, a lot of men have found Brown a pretty frustrating customer.
He is. That's why his record is so good, and that's why he hasn't been stopped. He is very good at tying guys up, dropping the pace of a fight, flicking away his jab, keeping guys off balance. He's a good old pro, and he's given Plooy a lot of problems.
Plooy just got through there with a right, but again, Brown seems quite unperturbed by it all. Gets by on his defensive skills and his know-how and ring craft, but he doesn't quite frankly give the impression that he's too interested in actually winning the fight, does he, Phil Brown?
I don't think so. I don't think at this minute it doesn't look as if it's crossed his mind. I've seen him walk back to the corner a couple of times shaking his head, and I'm just trying to puzzle out why he's shaking his head, because he hasn't really done anything to be upset about.
The prime concerns for Phil Brown, and you can hardly blame him at 36, are to make sure he collects his pay, to give a decent performance and make sure his health stays intact. It's not a bad philosophy, come to think of it.
I think the sad thing in a way is every now and again Brown throws a couple of jabs and a quick right hand. He's 36-year-old and he looks like a man 27. He looks in great shape, and I think if he just put himself about a little bit more and did a bit more work, he could be twice the fighter.
Well, the end of the round, and the pattern much the same. Plooy is winning the rounds. He's making most of the running, but he's having very little success. He's not hurting Brown. Brown can stand up in the corner there. He's been in no kind of trouble at all. Doesn't even need a seat look, Glenn.
The amount of work he's done so far, I don't think he will for the rest of the fight. And I think if I was his trainer, I'd give him a slap, tell him to sit down, and next round go out there and work.
Well, you're right what you say. So far, and this has looked like the kind of very gentle sparring you sometimes see in the gym. I've seen much better fights and more earnest action down at the Thomas à Becket pub in the gym over there.
That's right. I think if I was Plooy, I'd be getting a little bit frustrated, and yet he's not. He keeps touching gloves before and after the round. He should be getting a little bit more devil in him, wanting to get this guy out of the way. This guy stands between some big paydays.
6th round of 8 coming up. Plooy in the blue trunks from South Africa. Phil Brown from the United States in red. A fight which so far has not exactly sparked the crowd here into any great raptures, to put it mildly. See, Plooy definitely is a puncher, because he's knocked out, for instance, somebody like Everett Martin, who lasted the distance with George Foreman in the last year or so.
His record suggests that he's a very good puncher, an exciting fighter. It suggests that he's sometimes suspect when he gets hit back, but he always goes out there and gives his money's worth. Well, tonight he's not doing that, and I'm a little bit disappointed, because I was expecting to see a bit of action from Johnny Plooy.
It looks, to be honest, doesn't it, as if he's just treating this as a marking time fight, really.
I think so. I don't know how serious he is about the fight, how hard he's trained. I know he was getting ready for one of his fights, and he came up to the northeast to come and train with us, and I think it wasn't quite the luxuries he wanted, and he went back to train elsewhere. So I don't know how hard of a trainer he is.
I wonder what his father in the corner, Duke, is making of all this. Duke is a bit of a Charles Bronson look-alike. I always think maybe Charles Bronson would have made a pretty fair fighter himself, but I guess we mustn't give the promoters ideas.
I don't think so.
Plooy getting through a little bit. First with the jab, then the left hook.
Either fighter's is going to make a name for himself with the Italian crowd. But, you know, there's a definite hush here, and people just want to see a little bit of action.
Brown is here merely to survive, and Plooy is doing very little to stop him from doing that, which doesn't add up to the most exciting contest of all time.
In fairness to Plooy, it is Brown who, you know, he is an old campaigner. He has been around. He does know how to spoil a fight, and he is a survivor. He doesn't want to get hurt. He wants to go home with his paycheck with the least amount of damage he can. And he's doing a good job of that, and he's just trying to nullify everything Plooy's got and make a bit of a no contest of it. And at the minute, he's doing it.
Last few seconds of the round. Brown still having no problems at all. Closing stages of this fight coming up on ringside in a moment. Welcome back to St. Vincent in Italy. Crowd building up, looking forward to seeing their hero Gianfranco Rossi defending his light middleweight title here later on this evening. You'll see it live. Meantime, the hors d'oeuvre is Johnny Plooy here up against Phil Brown from the United States. Brown just breathing a little heavier, going into this 7th of 8 rounds, having taken a body shot towards the end of that 7th round. He certainly wanted to sit on his stool after that. Earlier taking the break, standing up, and another body shot from Plooy. Maybe encouraged. Brown is starting to look a little bit more tired and maybe feeling those 36 years, Glenn.
He is, and Plooy made a definite switch to work on the body there. I think he did hurt him with a right hand just at the end of that round. I think if he threw a lot more shots, he'd have a lot more success. He's still too keyed up. He looks, you know, very tight. He's trying to get the big hooks off first instead of throwing a jab.
Johnny Plooy, who actually has fought for a version of the world heavyweight title, a rather spurious WBO version against Francesco Damiani, and he was knocked out in the 3rd round. It was a very emphatic defeat, and Plooy wept after that, and has been looking really to rebuild his career convincingly ever since.
Well, this certainly isn't the way to do it. He definitely needed to get back with some sort of respect. He needed a good performance tonight. He just isn't getting it. He's lived up a little bit in this round, and I think he's definitely ahead on points. A poor performance.
Just going back to the WBO, their current champion is Ray Mercer. They don't recognize Evander Holyfield or Mike Tyson or George Foreman or anybody else, so make sense of that if you will. I can't.
I can't either.
Plooy here is looking for the stoppage if he can get it. Brown is looking more tired and is beginning to take more shots now, but the finishing post is in sight for him. This is the 7th round, and maybe Plooy will become only the 3rd man to stop Phil Brown, or will he? I think Brown is quite glad this isn't going to go 10.
He certainly tied a lot more and looked a lot more apprehensive. He turned away and walked across the ring with his back to him, and then just now he almost did a crab-like guard and brought his knee up. So I don't think he's getting through a bit now.
Yeah, got through there with a couple of good head punches. Now this is better from Plooy. He has slowed Brown down steadily, erosively, certainly not excitingly, but he's getting the job done, as they say. Last 15 seconds of the 7th round, after that only one to come.
Looking very tired now, Brown. Breathing very heavy. Looking to grab every time he can.
Uppercut inside as well from Plooy. There goes the bell to end the round. Johnny Plooy looking for the knockout here. Join us back in St Vincent in a moment or two.
Here it ain't it. The Coral Sea of Oz. This is
40 seconds.
Last round coming up here at the Palazzetto dello Sport in St Vincent, up in the pretty alpine scenery near Turin. Phil Brown looking to survive this final round against Johnny Plooy, who's started to have his successes in the last couple of rounds. He's begun to wear Brown down.
He just, most of his success come in the last round when he just started tire Brown. Up until then, it's been a poor fight from Plooy. And I think, what he really needs to stop it, and I think he can get it. He just needs to be a bit braver and a bit more devil in him and go to work.
He needs to throw his punches in clusters a bit more, doesn't he, really? He's got through there with a couple to the head again. Brown leans on, breathes even more heavily.
Every round's followed pretty much the same plan. Plooy coming forward, throwing the jab, the odd right hand, the body, and then trying a few hooks inside, and then Brown doing his little bit and tying him up and making the best he can to do a negative job.
Phil Brown totally lacking in ambition here. Very negative performance from him. I must admit it's rather what we expected.
I think so. At 36 he realises he's not going anywhere, he just doesn't want to get hurt, and if he can get a payday, get it. But I thought Plooy would have done a lot better with him.
Noticeably though in the last 3 rounds he's having to take a lot more now, Brown. Both the body and head. His defence isn't working so well. He's tiring down the finishing straight, and really the only question is, can he last home now?
He looks very lethargic. Just as they came above us there, Plooy's eyes. He sort of put his eyes in the air as if he was a little bit sick of the whole thing.
Good uppercut as well from Plooy. That just shook Brown as well. We're into the last minute of the contest now. Oh, and again, good shot that from Johnny Plooy.
Could have, but Brown just fell inside, didn't allow him to get anything else wrong.
Brown is positively gasping now. And Plooy is starting to let them go, but it looks like it's too late. If he wants to become only the 3rd man to stop this resilient American. "20 seconds to go. You're getting the countdown there on the bottom right of your picture. Phil Brown holds on again, buys a few more seconds. And there goes the bell to end it, and that gets the biggest cheer of the contest. Not a classic, Glenn.
It wasn't a good fight. And I think the crowd are very disappointed, as I am. I expect to see a bit of fireworks from Plooy. He's a known puncher, and yet he just lacked any enthusiasm for this bout. And that he's won comfortably. So it goes on his record as 1-8.
Well, we've had a bit of a go at Phil Brown for being negative, but quite honestly, the onus in that fight was on Johnny Plooy. He is the man who presumably, or does he, still have some ambition in this game to make some kind of impact. And I suppose, being kind, you could say it was workmanlike, but exciting it wasn't, explosive it wasn't. And I don't think it's going to exactly send reverberations around the world heavyweight scene, that.
I don't think so. At this point, he needed a little bit of excitement. He needed a good win, especially against this opponent. He needed to knock him out. and you'll get back in the headlines again, and he's failed to do that, and I don't think he's made a name for himself.
So Plooy there taking some much needed refreshment. It's hard work in there, and he's undoubtedly got the win, there's no doubt about it. It'll be a very lopsided points decision. Phil Brown just explaining to the Italian referee, in what language I don't know. Here comes the official verdict now.
I think Brown was just saying what he was going to do.
Complete formality, of course.
The winner by point, Johnny Plooy, South Africa.
There it is. And I can tell you that the scoring was 80 to 72, 80 to 74, and 80 to 74 with the three judges, which means that none of them gave Phil Brown one round of that contest, and I would agree with that totally. But Johnny du Plooy didn't make himself any new friends there, no doubt about that. And I don't think Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield, or George Foreman need to lose any sleep at all.
Well, it wasn't a classic. Maybe the reason for the delay, Gary, was that the judges actually didn't want to choose the winner out of that.
No, I think that decision was predictable. It's hard to criticise du Plooy for that performance because the other guy didn't really want to fight. He was there to survive. He did what he does best, and that's survive and go the distance.
But Ian Darke was right in commentary. He said then the onus is on du Plooy to go out and make a fight of it, and that he did not do.
Yes, but in doing so, he can leave himself exposed to lots of things, and he'd look even more stupid if he'd gone and beaten someone he should have really beaten, wouldn't he?
Well, he got the verdict, which I suppose is the reason that he turned up this evening, and we hope we will hear more from du Plooy down the line, more aggressively about du Plooy. We'll hear more, perhaps. We'll take a short break, back with more live boxing after these.